We've got breaking news out of the NBA where Miami Heat big man Bam Adebayo has suffered a torn UCL ligament in his right thumb. He's set to undergo surgery this weekend after injuring the thumb during Monday's loss to the Nuggets. Adebayo is expected to miss approximately 6 weeks. That's according to the Sun Sentinel's Ira Winderman. Bam is averaging a career-high 18.7 points and 10.2 rebounds per game this season. The expectations for Bam were high coming into the 2021-22 season. All-star, possible Defensive Player of the Year candidate as you look at a breakdown of his past 2 seasons. For more on this news and how it will affect Bam and the Heat, let's now welcome in CBS Sports HQ basketball analyst Bill Reiter. Bill, not a good day for the Heat today. Not great news here later in the afternoon given the expectations for Bam. What's your reaction to this news?
Yeah, Jeremy, you said it. My reaction is it's a rough day for the Heat. Earlier in the day, they lose a second-round pick because of the NBA's investigation did conclude there was some tampering, and then a huge blow in losing Bam for whether it's 6 weeks, a little more, a little bit less. I talked to several Heat officials over the last couple of weeks just about their team, their optimism, and their view, the right view, that the Eastern Conference is as good as it's been in a really long time, and just talking about what they need to do. Bam's name came up several times as obviously a key piece of what Erik Spoelstra and company have to get done to be competitive. You lose this guy, it's a huge blow defensively, it's a huge blow as a leader to that team, and certainly the Heat are going to have to battle to make sure they don't lose any ground in a very crowded Eastern Conference. Yeah,
do you expect this to have a severely, they're 2 points back of the Nets right now, right? They've got a big stretch of games coming up. They say they're going to assess the timetable post-surgery for his return. But they haven't been that bad when he's not on the court. How negative of an impact do you expect this to have?
Yeah, that's right. It's really interesting. You're right. If you dive into the numbers and you look at some of the analytics, they're actually, in a lot of ways, markedly better, at least offensively, when he's off the floor, particularly, and you would think the gravitational force of what he can do would free up some guys on the wing, but their three-point shooting takes a huge hit. Almost every single player on the floor, other than I think P.J. Tucker, when he's out there. And I ran this by a Heat executive not too long ago because the numbers were interesting, and I got a typical Miami Heat, Pat Riley-inspired response, which was polite, you're full of crap, as the response. So I can tell you the Heat think that Bam is a big part of what they do, whatever the stats say. But I think it is worth noting that this is a Heat team that's been a little beat up this year. Not overwhelmingly so, but they've had some nagging injuries. It's a team that's had injuries the last 2 years. And they do have, everyone says they have a next man up mentality, but that's actually how they roll in Miami. And that's how Erik Spoelstra wants things to be done. That's how Pat Riley wants things to be done. And so whether it's P.J. Tucker moving to the 5 more often or Dedmon having to step up in a big way, there is a culture in place for when something like this happens, if it's 6 weeks rather than say 3 months, which is what we expect, where the Heat feel like they can, through energy, through effort, through chemistry, get it done.
So do you expect it to be kind of a split role in terms of how that workload gets divided, or do you think that there is going to be one of those guys in particular that's going to get the bulk of the minutes?
It's a great question. I think the first week or two, handful of games, it's going to be a lot of different things that Erik Spoelstra is going to try. Certainly in the time that I covered the Miami Heat as a daily beat reporter, and since then, something that was always clear is that Spo always liked to tinker and play with rotations and see what he had. And so this change, I think you'll see different looks to different guys and what they try to do. And then Spoelstra and that organization is probably going to make an assessment at some point. And by the final 3 weeks of hopefully what are Bam's time away, hopefully it's not too long, you'll probably see a solution they'll go to.
And Cleveland, Indiana, Milwaukee, Memphis, then the Bucks again, just looking ahead at the schedule. Then the Bulls coming up after that. It's not ideal to lose a guy like Bam at any point of the season for a significant stretch, but how important is this particular stretch for the Heat, given the fact that it is such a tight race in the East?
Yeah, it's a huge stretch, and you just named some teams that are really physical. The Bulls are a really physical team. Cleveland, who's been a really nice surprise, is a really physical team. And so the Miami Heat, every battle they go into, they're never going to face, this is their view, and I think it's right, they're never going to face somebody tougher than they are. Maybe as tough, but they're going to have to live up to that over the course of some of these games. Not just good teams, several good teams, but teams that are not afraid to get into a bit of a street brawl. And again, the Eastern Conference, several GMs have told me over the course of this season they think it's the best Eastern Conference we've seen maybe this century. And those aren't my words. Those are the words of guys running organizations out east. And so if that's right or even remotely right, the Heat look at that schedule and know, again, they've got to have every man step up, and some of their leaders and stars have to be even bigger because you do not want to fall behind in the Eastern Conference, even in December.
CBS Sports HQ basketball analyst Bill Reiter joining us to discuss Bam Adebayo, who's going to be out at least for the holiday season for the Miami Heat. Thanks very much for joining us, Bill. Appreciate you hopping on with us on short notice. Tonight's notable games does include the Miami Heat taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. We talked about their next 6 games. Cavs in there. Milwaukee Bucks are in there twice. They're going to face the Bulls as well. Tonight they go in hosting the Cavs as 4.5-point favorites. That game underway at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. They will not have Bam Adebayo for the foreseeable future. He is out with a torn UCL in his thumb.